Picture this. You are standing right in the middle of the produce aisle at your local grocery store.
Oh, yeah, right when those little misting sprinklers have just gone off.
Exactly.
Yep.
Everything is glistening. And you're staring down two practically identical apples.
Right.
I mean, they're the same color, the same size, the same perfectly shiny skin. But one of them has this little green sticker on it that says organic.
And the other is just your standard conventional apple.
Right. But there is a wildly different price tag on each of them. So you look from one to the other, and you're probably thinking what, millions of people think every single day.
Is this more expensive one actually doing something fundamentally better for my body?
Yes. Or am I just like financing a very expensive sticker?
It's honestly the ultimate modern grocery store dilemma. We make these choices constantly, and it's driven by this vague, culturally ingrained sense that the organic option is just vastly superior.
Yeah, we associate that little label with, vitality and higher nutrient density. Like they're just generally being a more responsible human if you buy it.
Exactly. But the assumptions we carry in our shopping carts often completely detach from the actual reality of agricultural science.
Which is exactly the mission of this deep dive. We are taking a massive stack of nutritional data, research scripts, and some really in-depth analytical articles completely focused on the biochemical reality of organic versus conventional foods.
We want to extract the actual scientific truth here.
Right, we're going to strip away the marketing, look past the pretty packaging, and really figure out the biological mechanisms at play. Because, it is frustrating to try and make informed choices for your long-term health when the marketing suggests this massive nutritional gulf that, well, might not actually exist.
Yeah, so we need to approach this calmly, analytically, and most importantly, at a molecular level.
Right down to the molecules.
Exactly. We'll look at what the science actually reveals about vitamin synthesis, how plants develop antioxidants, the toxicological reality of pesticide residues, and how farming practices trickle all the way up the food chain.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because before we even start weighing the nutritional value of those two apples, we really need to establish exactly what those labels on the shelves mandate.
That's a great starting point.
Right, because organic and conventional are not biological classifications of the fruit itself. They're just, two entirely different rule books for the farmers growing them.
That distinction is so critical. We are talking about production systems here, not different species of apple. So let's look at the organic rule book first.
Okay.
When food is produced organically, it's grown under highly specific, legally certified standards. At a baseline, these standards prohibit the use of synthetic pesticides, artificial fertilizers,
GMOs, right?
right, no genetically modified organisms. And when we move to livestock, no routine antibiotics or certain growth hormones.
So if I'm visualizing this, organic farming operates a bit like a highly exclusive VIP club.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, like the bouncer at the door has this very strict, fundamentally natural guest list. If you're an artificial lab-created fertilizer, you are not getting in.
Definitely not.
If you're a synthetic pesticide, you are definitely not getting past the velvet rope. You basically have to be naturally derived to enter the system.
I'd refine that VIP club idea just a bit, though. It's not just about who gets past the velvet rope. It's about forcing the ecosystem to do the heavy lifting.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, because the inputs are highly restricted, the farmer has to rely on biological pest control, like actually releasing ladybugs to eat aphids.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, or using natural compost to build soil fertility instead of chemicals.
Got it.
Now, on the flip side, we have conventional agriculture, and this system is designed around advanced farming technologies. The primary objective is efficiency, yield, and predictable control over the environment.
Right. So if organic is the exclusive club relying on the natural ecosystem, conventional farming is like a highly optimized modern factory.
That's a good way to put it.
The goal is maximum reliable output to feed a massive population. And to achieve that predictability, the farmers are permitted to use synthetic fertilizers to, inject exact amounts of nitrogen right into the soil,
Yes.
and approved synthetic pesticides to proactively neutralize threats to the crop.
But here is the crucial biological baseline we really have to establish before we go any further.
Okay, lay it on me.
Despite these radically different production systems, the, biological reliance versus the high-tech control, both ultimately have the exact same fundamental goal: producing safe, accessible food.
Right.
The real question we're answering today is whether those vastly different production methods significantly alter the chemical and nutritional architecture of the food itself.
Which brings us to the core tension of this whole debate. The natural assumption, and frankly the one the marketing leans into heavily, is that if the farming methods are that different, the food itself must be radically different on the inside.
That's what everyone thinks.
You just assume the organic apple is absolutely packed to the core with a higher concentration of vitamins. But looking at the data from our sources, the results are like almost completely counterintuitive.
It is the most common expectation consumers have. But when researchers take these foods into a lab and actually measure the essential nutrients, they find surprisingly similar levels across the board.
Way early.
Yeah, the scientific consensus tells a remarkably balanced story here.
I mean, we are talking about the heavy hitters of human nutrition. The research specifically tracks things like vitamin C, calcium, iron, potassium, magnesium, and protein.
And the levels between organic and conventional produce are nearly indistinguishable.
That's wild. So a conventional apple provides valuable nutrients just like an organic one.
Exactly. The overall nutritional gap is practically a rounding error in the lab.
It is incredibly frustrating because you stand there paying a premium, assuming you're buying this, denser package of vitamin C. It's like buying a luxury car versus an economy car.
Oh, I see where you're going.
Yeah, you pay way more for the luxury car, but both still have 4 wheels and an engine that get you to the exact same nutritional destination.
What's fascinating here is to understand why the levels are so similar, you really have to look at the underlying biology of how a plant actually grows.
Okay, take me back to biology class.
So a plant needs specific elemental building blocks, things like nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. It honestly doesn't matter if those elements are delivered via a synthetic liquid fertilizer or a pile of natural cow manure.
The plant doesn't care.
Not at all. By the time the plant's root system absorbs those nutrients, it has broken them down to their base elemental form.
So the plant literally cannot tell the difference between organic nitrogen and synthetic nitrogen.
Exactly. There is no such thing as an organic isotope of calcium. A nutrient is a nutrient.
Wow.
The plant synthesizes vitamin C through its own internal genetic blueprint using sunlight and water. The mechanism of a plant creating that vitamin for itself does not change just because of the farming certification on the tractor that planted it.
So for the fundamental essential vitamins and minerals, the production method just isn't the deciding factor.
Right.
If your body needs iron or potassium, either option delivers the exact same payload. Nutritionists consistently point out that it is the sheer volume of fruits and vegetables you consume that moves the needle for your health, not how they were grown.
That is the foundational takeaway for sure. But we can't dismiss the organic label entirely based solely on vitamins and minerals.
Okay.
Because while the core engine of the food is the same, the data does show a measurable, distinct difference in another category of compounds.
Right, because if the core vitamins are a wash, there has to be something driving this entire industry. And the research centers almost entirely on a very specific category of plant compounds.
Antioxidants.
Yes, antioxidants. Specifically, we are looking at polyphenols and flavonoids.
We see this consistently in crops like berries, grapes, leafy greens, and tomatoes. Studies suggest that organically grown versions of these specific fruits and vegetables do contain higher concentrations of these beneficial plant compounds.
And we hear the word antioxidant thrown around on like every juice commercial on television. But let's actually break down what that means biologically for the person eating the apple. What is a polyphenol and why do we want it?
Think of everyday cellular function in your human body like an engine running.
Okay.
Just by existing, digesting food, and breathing, your cells produce exhaust. In biology, we call that exhaust-free radicals.
I've heard of those. They're bad, right?
Yeah, they're highly unstable molecules that bounce around and damage your cells. It's essentially biological rust, a process known as oxidative stress.
Okay, so oxidative stress is the biological rust inside our bodies. And polyphenols are what? The rust-proofing.
That is a highly accurate way to frame it. Polyphenols and flavonoids step in and neutralize those unstable free radicals before they can cause cellular damage.
They are the rust-proofing.
Yes, and this is where the farming method directly impacts the chemistry of the plant.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because it all comes down to what I'd call tough love.
Tough love.
Yeah, think about it. Why does an organic strawberry have more of this rust-proofing than a conventional one? Because in a conventional farming system, the plant is protected by synthetic pesticides. It has chemical bodyguards.
Right.
But in an organic system, the plant does not have that shield. When pests attack or the weather gets harsh, the plant has to defend itself.
And since plants cannot run away from a threat, they have to fight chemically.
Exactly.
When an organic plant is stressed by its environment or bitten by an insect, its biological response is to produce these specific chemical compounds, polyphenols and flavonoids, which act as a natural defense
It
mechanism.
makes the leaves taste bitter to bugs, right? Or helps the plant survive a drought.
Pers-
So it is a literal workout for the plant. The
Mhm.
struggle against the elements builds up their antioxidant muscle.
Mm.
And then, when humans consume those organically grown plants, we ingest those defense compounds.
Yeah.
The plant's stressful environment directly translates into a health benefit for our own cellular defense.
It is a brilliant biological adaptation. However, as analytical thinkers, we really have to contextualize this benefit.
Fair enough.
While this is a real measurable phenomenon, the differences in antioxidant concentration are moderate. You are getting a boost, but you are not completely rewriting the nutritional profile of the food.
It's a nice bonus, but
Yeah.
it's not magic.
Exactly.
And so far, we have been talking entirely about fruits and vegetables. What happens when we follow this up the food chain? Because if a farming practice alters the chemical makeup of a plant, that naturally has to impact the animal that eats the plant.
This raises an important question. Agriculture is a closed biological loop. What goes into the soil goes into the plant, and what goes into the plant goes into the cow or the chicken.
Right.
When we examine organic meat and dairy products, the research indicates they often contain higher levels of omega-3 fatty acids and a more favorable ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s compared to their conventional counterparts.
And looking at the mechanisms, this is a direct result of how the animals were managed and fed, right?
Yes, exactly.
Like, an organic dairy cow is typically required to spend more time grazing on actual pasture,
Mm.
eating a diverse range of grasses, rather than just standing in a feedlot eating a highly controlled conventional grain mix.
And that difference in diet literally changes the fat profile of the milk she produces.
Wow.
It is the trickle-down effect of the agricultural inputs. The forage-based diet alters the fatty acid composition, but just as we did with the apples and the vitamins, we really have to pull back and look at the whole picture.
Okay, what's the big picture here?
The data is clear that despite these variations in the fat profiles, both organic and conventional animal products remain incredibly reliable sources of their primary nutritional payloads.
Meaning things like complete proteins.
Yes, complete proteins, bioavailable iron, zinc, and vitamin B12.
Which brings me back to the practical reality of standing at the meat counter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as a consumer, I have to ask myself, is a 20% bump in omega-3 fatty acids in a glass of milk truly a deal breaker?
Right.
Especially when I could just choose to eat a single piece of salmon later in the week and absolutely dwarf that omega-3 intake, while still getting the exact same core protein from a much cheaper conventional steak.
That is the exact analytical framework you should be applying. You are weighing a modest optimization in fatty acids against what is often a significantly higher financial cost.
Yeah, that price tag.
For a consumer where optimizing every micronutrient is a priority and budget is completely unlimited, that shift in omega-3s might be worth it. But for the vast majority of people, securing affordable, high-quality protein is the primary goal. Both choices are biologically sound.
So let's address the elephant in the room. Because if the nutritional differences across both plants and animals are just modest adjustments, like a few more antioxidants here, a slightly better fat profile there, why is this debate so emotionally charged?
It really is.
People don't just prefer organic food. They are often legitimately terrified of conventional food.
Because the conversation almost entirely ignores what is added to the food naturally and hyperfixates on what is left behind by the farmer, we have to talk about pesticide residues.
Ah, this is the real driver.
Yeah.
It is way less about seeking vitamins and almost entirely about the fear of toxic chemicals.
Exactly.
And the data explicitly shows that while pesticide residues are obviously not nutrients, they absolutely dominate consumer decision-making.
And it is a biological fact. Organic foods generally contain lower levels of synthetic pesticide residues.
Right, because synthetic pesticides are heavily restricted in organic farming, the residues left on the final product will naturally be lower.
Makes sense. For many, this reduction in chemical exposure is the sole reason they pay the premium. It is a pursuit of purity. But to understand the actual risk, we have to look past the mere presence of a chemical and understand how toxicological safety thresholds actually work.
This is where the marketing really breaks down for me.
Mm.
Because yes, there are residues on conventional produce, but the data points out that conventional foods sold in North America, specifically regulated by bodies like the EPA, FDA, and Health Canada, are subject to incredibly rigorous monitoring.
Very rigorous. In toxicology, there's a fundamental rule. The dose makes the poison.
The dose makes the poison.
Exactly. Public health organizations establish what is called a reference dose, or RFD, for every single approved pesticide. This is the maximum acceptable oral dose of a toxic substance.
Right.
But what consumers rarely understand is how massive the safety buffers are when calculating that limit.
Let's break that down, because this is the aha moment that completely changes how you look at the produce aisle. How do they actually set that limit?
Scientists find the absolutely highest dose of a chemical that causes no observable negative effect in animal testing.
Okay, so a dose with zero effect.
Right. Then, to be overwhelmingly safe for human consumption, they take that no effect level and divide it by a factor of 100, or sometimes even 1,000, to set the legal limit for food.
Wait, 1,000?
Yes. So the legal limit is hundreds of times lower than a dose that doesn't even cause a problem.
To put that into real-world terms, based on toxicological data, a child would literally have to eat hundreds of servings of conventional strawberries in a single sitting, on a single day, to even approach the EPA's chemical safety limit for pesticide residue.
Exactly.
I mean, you would die of a ruptured stomach from the sheer volume of food long before the pesticide residue had any biological impact.
The monitoring programs ensure that any residues remaining on conventional produce are microscopic compared to the levels that actually pose a risk to human health. Furthermore, consumers have an incredibly effective mechanical way to reduce those already regulated residues even further.
Right. You don't need to spend double the money to avoid the residue. You just need a sink.
A sink and running water.
By washing your fruits and vegetables thoroughly under running water, the friction and the water mechanically break the surface tension and wash the majority of those microscopic residues right down the drain.
It is a simple, highly effective intervention.
So what does this all mean?
Yeah.
Am I basically washing my money down the drain, buying organic just to avoid pesticides, when I could just be washing my conventional produce in the sink?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, if your sole driving motivation for buying organic is the fear of toxicity, understanding the sheer scale of those safety buffers and the effectiveness of washing should provide massive reassurance.
You really should.
Both conventional and organic options are deemed safe by rigorous toxicological standards. Both are entirely appropriate foundations for a human diet.
Which brings us to the final macro-level synthesis. I mean, we have zoomed way in today.
We really have.
We've looked at the biological rust-proofing of polyphenols, the fat profiles of dairy cows, and the exact toxicological buffers of pesticide limits. But focusing entirely on whether a strawberry has a microscopic residue difference or slightly more antioxidants creates a dangerous blind spot.
It really does.
Nutritionists warn that this hyperfixation on the label is actually distracting us from the real crisis, which is the pattern of how we eat.
When you consult public health data and nutritional epidemiology, experts consistently steer the conversation away from labels, certifications, and this whole pursuit of purity.
Right.
The healthiest diets on the planet are not defined by a sticker. They are defined by an abundance of whole foods.
The data lays out the roster clearly, right?
Yeah.
A diet dominant in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, lean proteins, and healthy fats. That is the architecture of human health.
And the overwhelming medical consensus is that a diet rich in those whole foods offers profound health benefits, reducing risks of heart disease, diabetes, and certain cancers, regardless of whether those foods carry an organic certification.
The biochemical impact of eating a conventional broccoli florette is immensely positive for your cellular health.
The danger is not that the broccoli was grown conventionally. The danger is that you aren't eating the broccoli at all.
It is the great irony of modern diet culture. Arguing over organic versus conventional is like arguing over whether to hydrate with expensive spring water or tap water while we are collectively dying of thirst.
That's a powerful way to look at it.
We argue over the label on the apple when the real crisis is that people simply aren't eating the apple.
That analogy perfectly captures the misdirected energy. The ultimate biological insight from all of this data is this: consistency matters exponentially more than perfection.
Consistency over perfection.
Always. The healthiest diet is the one rich in nutrient-dense foods that you can actually sustain over decades. Whether those whole foods are organic or conventional is entirely secondary to the simple daily act of consuming them.
Choose what fits your budget, choose what fits your local availability, and just choose what fits your life.
Exactly.
Let's rapidly recap the scientific reality we've uncovered today. We started with 2 apples and a massive price discrepancy. What the biochemistry shows us is that the core engine of the food, the essential vitamins, minerals, and proteins, is synthesized exactly the same way, regardless of the farming method.
Organic agriculture does provide modest biological bonuses. You see higher levels of polyphenols because the plants have to fight off environmental stress themselves, and you see slight improvements in the fatty acid profiles of animal products.
And lower residues.
Yes, you also have a lower baseline of synthetic pesticide residues.
But conventional foods offer massive vital benefits as well. They provide the exact same core nutritional payload, but with far greater affordability and wider accessibility for the global population.
And they are governed by incredibly strict toxicological safety buffers that ensure they are fundamentally safe to consume.
Both pathways produce safe, nutritious food. The key is to stop letting the pursuit of the perfect organic diet prevent you from building a good, consistent conventional diet.
Consistency is everything.
Which brings me to a final provocative thought for you to mull over as we wrap up. The data overwhelmingly proves that a consistent, highly imperfect diet, full of conventional vegetables, is vastly superior to a quote-unquote perfect organic diet that you can only afford to eat 3 days a week.
The human body rewards consistency, not sporadic perfection.
So, consider this. Could the relentless societal pressure to buy organic actually be causing you more physiological harm than good?
That's an interesting point. Stress takes a toll.
Exactly. If standing in that produce aisle, staring at the price of organic spinach, causes you acute financial stress, elevates your cortisol levels, and ultimately makes you buy fewer vegetables overall because they feel too expensive, then the organic label is actively degrading your health.
High cortisol and fewer vegetables is a bad combination.
It really is. Next time you're in that aisle, looking at the mist settling on those two identical apples, give yourself permission to let go of the anxiety. Grab the apple you can comfortably afford, take it home, wash it in the sink, and just enjoy the profound benefits of eating real food.